Every once in a while, the topic of the Singapore identity comes up. Often, it's couched as a question. Do we have a defining identity in view of our relatively short history? At other times, it's an expression of angst. We point to kiasuism, competitiveness, and stress, and we ask ourselves, is this all that there is to us? We are known to be pragmatic, logical, and rational, but this also prompts us to wonder, are we all head and no heart? When I came to the chamber just now, I found on my seat a brown envelope from Ms. Kwek Xiao Yin. She had inserted inside a copy of the letter from the NUS students of Tembusu College to the 4th Prime Minister of Singapore that was widely publicized. In that letter, the students express their concerns, their hopes, their fears, many of those related to the Singapore identity. The question of the Singapore identity is particularly pertinent as we enter a new phase of the Singapore story. A new global situation is emerging. Politically, we see the rise of China, the introspection of America, new tensions in the Middle East, Britain's exit from the European Union, and closer to home, a new situation in Malaysia. The global economic center of gravity is shifting to Asia. Technology is penetrating lives and changing lifestyles, disrupting old jobs and creating new ones. It's triggering innovation, but posing fresh conundrums. Socially, we and the rest of the world are grappling with income inequality, social stratification, and the dangers of polarization. Our population is aging, new births are not replacing the ones who pass on. And amidst this, the ever-present shadow of terrorism. Against this backdrop, the following questions arise. Do we, this generation of Singaporeans, have what it takes to deal with these challenges and come out ahead? In this time of change, what anchors us? Who are we, and what do we stand for? What kind of future do we want to make for ourselves? These questions go to the very heart of our identity. We do have, a unique identity and defining characteristics. We sometimes forget, but our history is not short. We achieved independence in 1965. Raffles founded modern Singapore in 1819. But our story actually stretches far back to 1299, to the first founding by Sang Nila Utama. It's a 700-year journey through time and space that has made us the people that we are and given us the attributes that are now part of our uniquely Singaporean DNA. From the 14th century, Singapore emerged as a thriving emporium built on regional trade. Open trade and commerce have always been in our lifeblood. That remains true today. Singapore declined in the early 1700s due to the rise and relocation of other economic centers in the region. And that's an early lesson on what happens when you are overtaken by competition. You lose your relevance and slide into obscurity. The founding by Raffles in 1819 gave us a new lease of life. The bold move to make Singapore a free port and an open center of free trade not only re-established our economic importance, but it took us beyond the region, plugging us into global trade for the very first time. This global connection has carried on to the present day and continues to shape our economic outlook. It also led to the coming of many peoples and the establishment of many cultures, the beginnings of our multiculturalism. Over the next 150 years, sojourners became settlers. People sank roots. We were not yet one people, not yet a nation, but from a harbor, Singapore was becoming home. As a colony, Singapore grew in economic and strategic importance. But in the 1940s, the winds of war swept the world, and we were not spared. 1941 saw the fall of Singapore, an ignominious blow to the invincibility of the British Empire. It shattered forever the idea of the inevitability of colonial rule. The Japanese occupation was a period of subjugation and suffering, sacrifice and bloodshed, experienced directly by our parents and our grandparents. That is why, even to this day, the word sayonan evokes strong reactions. With the end of World War II came a global tide of anti-colonialism and the rise of nation-states. Our response? The upswell of a strong nationalist spirit and a fierce desire for the right to determine our own future. Next came the turbulent years of internal self-government, merger, separation, and finally, independence. In just 24 years, we made the tumultuous transition from subjugation to sovereignty. Our hopes and dreams for the future were captured in the Proclamation of Independence, which said, "Singapore shall be forever a sovereign, democratic, and independent nation, founded upon the principles of liberty and justice, and ever seeking the welfare and happiness of her people in a more just and equal society." That was the day we became one people, a nation, sovereign. You could say that that was also the day that a nascent Singapore identity emerged, shaped by the events of the preceding centuries, and to be further forged and honed in the next 50 years as we made the journey from third world to first. Who then are we, the people who have made this journey? Well, we are a people with a strong sense of self-determination. Our history has made us so. We have a deep and abiding belief that our future should be charted not by others, but by ourselves and on our own terms. Our independence was hard-won. We will preserve and protect that inalienable right. That is why the President's address makes securing Singapore's place in the world one of our priorities. That is also why we do not allow external interference with our politics. As a small country, we are often subject to external pressures. Countries larger and more powerful than us may from time to time try to dictate what we should do. However, we will only act in accordance with the best interests of Singapore, and this takes courage, deftness, and a healthy sense of realism. These too are our attributes. We wish to be friends with all, but we will defend ourselves if the need arises. We advance and defend our right to self-determination through diplomacy and deterrence. That is why we act on principle and support a rules-based international order where states must act in accordance with agreed rules and not purely on the basis of might or size. And that is why we have the SAF, and that is why we support NS. Long before multiculturalism became a buzzword, we made it part of our identity as a nation. The power of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's words in 1965 still resonate today, where he said, "We're going to have a multiracial nation in Singapore. We will set the example. This is not a Malay nation, this is not a Chinese nation, this is not an Indian nation. Everybody will have his place, equal, language, culture, religion." To be Singaporean is to accept that all can practice their faiths as long as you don't do harm to others. To be Singaporean is to be able to have your own distinct racial identity while at the same time being part of the larger Singaporean family and sharing a broader national identity with many other races. To be Singaporean is to be able to appreciate and celebrate other cultures while retaining your own. To be Singaporean is also to be part of a uniquely Singaporean culture. Singlish, eating at hawker centres, the concept of chopping, especially with a packet of tissue paper, our habit of calling everyone auntie or uncle, whether or not they're related to us, our preferred dress style, casual wear and slippers. And when you say fun shot, every Singaporean immediately knows they must put their thumbs up. These are things which cut across all ethnicities. At the core of our Singaporean identity is our values. More than anything else, it is our values that define us. Family, kindness, inclusiveness, honesty, integrity, and anti-corruption, meritocracy, and the aspiration for equality, justice, fairness, and the rule of law. Because of our values, our hallmark is trust. People know they can trust us. In global and regional trade, many accord a premium to dealing with Singaporean businesses. MNCs set up shop here, and investors invest because they know we can be trusted. As a country and as a people, our brand is trustworthiness, reliability. We are a committed people. When we say we will do something, we will. Our biggest commitment is closely interwoven with our identity. That is to be found in the pledge. What is the pledge but a commitment by every Singaporean to each other to build a better life together? In the pledge, we affirm our unity. We define the kind of society we want to build together, democratic, based on justice and equality. We set out our goals, happiness, prosperity, and progress for everyone. This is instilled in every Singaporean school child, every adult. Anyone who becomes a citizen must take that pledge as one of the first acts of citizenship and understand, through the pledge, what it means to be Singaporean.